When it comes to the Caitlin Clark effect, bringing new eyes to women's sports, it's done that better than anyone could have expected. But with those new eyes coming in, new fans coming in, a lot of current day players, former players, are just downright jealous of the attention she gets being an unproven rookie. And looking at Gilbert Arenas' podcast, on this podcast, he's a current WNBA player, that being Lexi Brown. And this girl routinely, for the past couple of months, taking dumps on Clark every single podcast.
But most great women's players that were great in college, they translated over to the NBA, and they all became. Breanna Stewart was a star in college. It translated.
Yeah.
Even she translated. Sue Bird translated. Candace Parker translated. Maya Moore translated. Most of the greats that came from college, they translated, and it didn't take them long. Maya Moore walked straight in like, "What's up?"
I'm like, she's physically. But she's fit. Those are physical.
Different.
Yeah, those are physically.
Caitlin, they wasn't taking 23s a game.
So the overall idea, Caitlin Clark, the unquestioned first overall pick, the best girl in college, won't translate immediately. I have a hard time buying that. The WNBA's overall talent jump from college to pros, not nearly as large as the men's game. And if you want to look at Clark's overall skills, her physicality, speed, quickness, I mean, those are actual things you can look to and say she might struggle with at the next level. The one thing she won't struggle with is the three-point shot and taking 23s per game. Shooting the basketball from high school to college to the pros, it's one of those skills that translates pretty easily. And for Clark especially, going to the pros, having an immediate green light, her pulling from 30-35 feet, just like in college, is going to translate very, very well. As looking at her college stats in her senior year, in conference play, 14.8 threes per game, an absurd amount, but the percentage was 39.7%. And looking at her career, from 3 in conference play, 40% shooter on 10 attempts per game. And as you guys know, Clark, not a spot-up shooter, a set-shot shooter, coming off screens. Most of her shots are extremely deep threes off the dribble, step-backs, and even in the pick and roll. This is not Sam Hauser we're talking about. She's more the female Steph Curry in her shot-making ability and overall percentage and volume.
haven't seen a female play like her.
No, me either.
That's all I'm saying.
But I think it's like from a freedom standpoint, too. I haven't seen a player with that type of green light before in college.
That's fair enough. That's all I'm saying. I've never seen the style of what she plays.
I mean,
I've never seen a female play like that
I've had games
before, like that.
I've had games in college and pro, 6, 7, 8 threes made out of 12.
Now, stopping it right there, maybe it's just me, but was she indirectly saying if she had Caitlin Clark's green light, she could make 6, 7, 8, 9 threes per game? That's what I heard at the very end, and I thought she was implying. And with all due respect to this girl, I mean, if you were on Gilbert's podcast, I couldn't pick you out of a crowd at my local Walmart. And looking back at her point saying, you know, I've made 6, 7, 8 threes in college and the pros. Why even bring that up? You as a player in college, pretty decent. But as a shooter, I mean, not even close to the level of someone like Caitlin Clark. As looking at her career, college and pros, 2014 to 2024, an entire decade of play. In the pros, 4 games of 5 or more threes. In college, 3 games. Lexi Brown in college and the pros has played a total of 272 games. Her odds of making 5 or more threes in a game is a whopping 2.6% chance. Caitlin Clark in her last 15 games in college alone had 9 games of 15 with 5 or more threes. And looking at Clark's entire college career, 139 games, 33% of the time she made 5 or more threes in a game. I think a lot of the WNBA players have a hard time grasping someone like Caitlin Clark is just super transcendent. And yes, some players, if they had a green light, they could score more, make more threes. But someone at Clark's level, shooting 40% on threes in nearly 15 attempts, no average player can do that with a green light.
This is your one chance.
But again,
what I'm saying is this is your one chance.
And I said this last week, it's not because the stars haven't been there. They just didn't have the machine behind them.
So that's what I'm saying. So if you want the
Who plays like her though, Caitlin?
What I'm saying is Diana.
So, stopping it right there, the word star being thrown around a little too lightly. If you want to say WNBA players are stars in terms of being the best player in their sport, you are correct. But then again, every sport from ping pong to lacrosse, whether 5 people are watching or 5 million, they have a best player in their sport and the top tier athletes. When it comes to WNBA stars, in terms of an overall sports landscape, these players are not relevant. And saying the quote-unquote machine hasn't backed them till now, I mean, that's a downright lie. 1994 ESPN ABC, they made a deal with women's basketball to broadcast them on their networks. And for the past, I would say, solid 10 years, women's basketball, college and pros, has been put in our face every single summer. I mean, last year's NBA playoffs, it seemed like every ad we saw was WNBA this, WNBA that. The machine has been backing them for a very, very long time. One comparison I always make to the WNBA is to the NBA in the 1970s. Because back then the overall league was struggling mightily. But at the same time, they still had stars. Guys like Kareem, McAdoo, Dave Cowens, and of course, Dr. J. All those guys were stars in their own right. But in terms of moving the needle at a national level, they didn't do that like Magic and Bird, who in 1980 broke it onto the scene and changed the game. And of course by 84, someone like Jordan came along, took what Magic and Bird built, and took it to another stratosphere. Every single league will always have star players and great players. But in terms of transcendent players, like a Jordan, a Steph, a Kobe, LeBron, guys of that ilk, they come along once in a generation. And for someone like Clark, an unproven rookie, looking at the hype, her overall game, I truly believe this girl is one of those players who would transcend the game and the sport. And one last point I do want to make when it comes to WNBA stars of the past. Looking at players like Brianna Stewart, A'ja Wilson, and especially Brittany Griner, what do those players have in common? They're all big players, play at the rim near the basket. They maybe have a little bit of a jump shot, but primarily dominate on the boards and in the paint. In terms of relatability, marketability, I mean, those players just really don't have it. Much like Kareem in the 70s, he was the best player, the marquee talent. But in terms of marketability, not the greatest face for the league and the NBA as a whole.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the future. I'm thinking about the ratings. The ratings don't want to see
Okay,
you.
well,
20 years.
I think she's
don't
that
wanna
good,
see DT
though.
on the bench.
Who says who?
They don't want to see.
How many-
If they are going to go head to head, they want to see the matchup.
Who do?
People.
No, they
What
don't.
do you mean?
No.
People are waiting for Caitlin to come
Nobody gives a
cook
fuck.
everybody.
I'm gonna just be honest with you.
her sitting on the bench.
It's been 20 years, right? The needle ain't been moved.
Now, Gilbert right here just dropped the cold hard facts. As discussing DT, Diana Taurasi, he said it straight up. In 20 years in her career, she's now pushing 40. The needle popularity for women's basketball hasn't moved in the slightest. Is she a great player, a legend? Of course she is. But in terms of transcendent ability, wasn't that person to move the league forward in the next era? And when it comes to overall viewership, Taurasi versus Clark, Clark versus Taurasi, I mean, what people are tuning in for is Caitlin Clark. Do they want to see the rivalry? Of course they do. But at the end of the day, this is not possible without Caitlin Clark. I think the big problem for a lot of these players is that an unproven rookie is coming in, getting all the shine, attention, and hype as the savior of the WNBA. And to an extent, I understand why that would piss them off and rub them the wrong way.
That's what I said. It don't matter about it can translate or not. It's gonna be manufactured. If the WNBA is not manufacturing for her to put the eyes on it, then they
Shit,
fail.
they already are. He went from one nationally televised game to 36.
That's college.
No, for the Fevers.
No, for the
No,
Fever.
for
What
the
I'm saying, yeah.
Fever.
So that right there,
They're already starting.
she's gonna average 20. I'm gonna figure out
Yeah, but
how
she
to
don't,
get
she don't
her
need nobody to give her.
No, what I'm saying is I'm not gonna.
And she's the type of player, she gonna take that shit. So
Right.
I'm not worried about that. Like, I wish I could be a fly on the wall in Fever training camp.
So that right there is our last clip. And again, when it comes to marketing your players for the WNBA, been one of their biggest problems for the longest time. But this girl right here just acts shocked and stunned that some of the Indiana Fever suddenly went from one televised game to now over 30. And it's like, well, of course that happened. They got a transcendent player who fans want to watch. Even if the Fever stink, play bad basketball, fans are showing up to the arena and tuning in to watch Clark's games. Very similar to someone like Wembanyama. This year, Wemby, nationally televised games virtually every single week. So that right there is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.